Netflix's flagship drama, The Crown, returned late last year for a third season with a brand new cast exploring key events of the royal family's life in the 60s and 70s. I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor at Gold Derby, and I am here with Emmy-winning cinematographer Adriano Goldman. Adriano, we are so familiar with the royal family and their story. Has it been, over the seasons, very challenging to give the show its own look and feel, given how much we see of them in archival footage?
Rob, I still think that even today, after 3 seasons, I benefit from the fact that I am not from the UK. I come from a different country, a different culture. So it remains a very challenging and exciting thing for me to do and to learn more about, not only the royal family, but about the period we're framing for specific seasons. I think the season has evolved in terms of the look. I think the first 2 seasons were a tiny bit more, I'm going to say, romantic or glossier somehow. I think now we're now framing the 70s and 80s with Olivia Colman leading the cast. She's performing a much more kind of mature and wise queen after being leading the country after 20 years or so. So I think we do evolve with the show. Although, to be really honest with you, I don't think it's a series of conscious decisions. I think it's a very interesting creative group we have on The Crown. Including all the directors and the designers and the costume designers and makeups and myself and the other DPs. So, it's always like an open conversation about things that should or could evolve. But it's funny how I think just for instance, on season 3, by being able to frame modern architecture on the exteriors, modern furniture, so little by little, the look almost changes by itself, because you're supposed to recognize the show. So it was never the intention to move away from the look we had on the first 2 seasons, and achieve something very different for season 3. That was never the goal. So I think it's almost like a natural progression towards modern times and the times we know better, because that's when we grew up in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a little bit more. I think what I want to say is, there's not like meetings where we establish rules for specific seasons. Like, this is what we want to change. I think it's a matter of shaping and reshaping the show as we go, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Right. And so, as the cinematographer, you're working with light and colour. Has the colour palette changed in particular over the seasons? Given that you're saying it's an organic change as you've been progressing, but how have you noticed the colours have changed over the years?
Well, definitely the level of saturation was one of the main conversations we had before we started on season 1. And I think I remember vividly, actually, when I had the costume designer and the production designer once on a meeting, I said, look, my goal is, I don't want to desaturate this on post. So I think we should be all on the same page. So please just bring me muted colors, or if you agree. Of course, it was a creative and very generous conversation. And I think we all agreed that by combining desaturated colors on the sets and costumes, by bringing vintage lenses and diffusion filters, and the use of haze that we did so extensively during the first 3 seasons, actually, all that combined would deliver a specific look. Although I'm absolutely convinced that the success of the show, it's not due to that. I think we collaborate. I think it's a very strong visual approach, and it's a very strong creative team. But I think Peter Morgan's lines and Claire Foy's performance and Nu's performance on, Vanessa Kirby's performance on the first season, and again, of course, now Olivia and the team and the rest of the cast, Helena and Tobias, it's just breathtaking. I mean, we just love watching those guys. I mean, on set, shooting with them is a privilege, and they elevate the standards. So you have to keep up. You have to fight, to keep your standards high. It's really pushing, and I really appreciate. I really honestly think that I do what I do because of the actors. I think that's my great passion in this industry. That's why, for instance, I kind of reluctantly do commercials these days. I do sometimes, but of course my preference is for fiction and drama especially. So I mean, when I met Claire Foy and then when I met Olivia, and then you see the level these guys are, it's just like, oh. And I'm this Brazilian just arriving to the scene, trying to learn, trying to keep up, trying to do my own research and offer ideas. I mean, it was very challenging. It was very challenging.
It's so interesting to say that.
But in the very best way, I must say. I mean, I was never. I can say I've never had a bad day on The Crown. I mean, it's been smooth and kind and mellow and elegant. I mean, all throughout. It's a very special show. Yeah,
it really is. And when you say that you're bringing your A game, because everybody is just so on point, and that is that's a wonderful thing to be working in a professional environment like that. But the challenges, they must be real. For example, those interior Buckingham Palace sets are so incredible visually, and I always wondered, how do you shoot them so that they look so grand and so real? Like it comes across very real. So talk us through that.
Well, I think it depending on the locations, there's a specific challenge I have to face. Some of the locations, especially the ones that are listed, don't allow us to use haze and smoke machines. So in terms of continuity, I always knew there would be a challenge in itself. So, for instance, the big foyer you see in almost every single episode with the big staircases, that's one of the locations I'm not allowed to use haze. And also, just so you know, and the audience knows, the only actual thing, I mean, we're not allowed to shoot at the real Buckingham Palace. So our Buckingham Palace, the one we show on the show, interior-wise, it's a combination of many locations. So many locations. So sometimes you shoot one day on a location, the guy goes through a door, and that sequence is going to have to continue somewhere else next week because that's the way things go. So we basically use 3 or 4 locations for Buckingham Palace interiors, plus the private rooms, the Queen's bedroom, Philip's bedroom, changing rooms, some tea rooms, and the her secretary's office. Those are built sets that we have in Elstree. So the more private rooms are, we own them, so we can always go back to them. They change a little bit from season to season, like in terms of the wallpapers or wall colors. The other are combinations. Even Windsor Palace, that we had to change the location. So it's funny because we cannot use them. And when you see the Buckingham Palace from outside on The Crown, that's also a built set on the back lot. But basically, it's just the ground floor or the bottom part and the outside gates that are actually built, and everything else is set VFX set extensions. Yeah.
So
it is challenging because some of those houses are super well kept. Some are not so well kept. That specific one, the big foyer, is actually a building that belongs to the UK government that they use for big events. So it's super flashy, super, the high, it's perfectly kept, and security level is super high. I'm not allowed to use haze because of the fire alarms. It cannot be switched off, etc., etc. So, day by day, you learn, and you have, of course, I had a massive help from my production designer, that he actually built a visual map combining all the locations, so all of us could actually understand. So that when he goes out through that door, it means that he needs to show, we need to find him again on that specific door at Wilton House, etc., etc. So now we do have our own geography to follow, which is very clever. And also, in terms of the overall color saturation, there are some locations that I need to treat in a different way, so they match better, so they cut better together. Yes.
It's so fascinating to hear, because obviously we are just watching the marvel that is on our screen. And speaking of, there's some really iconic shots that you did over season 3 in particular. And the season finale is what most comes to mind, particularly right at the end, as the Queen has just been told there is only one Queen, prepares for her Silver Jubilee. It's iconic, and you were able to recreate it quite beautifully. Can you talk us through the process of creating that very beautiful ending shot?
That's a very good question. Well, we had Jessica Hobbs directing, the last episode. She's very concerned about detail and accuracy, historical accuracy. But I think we can also somehow buy ourselves license sometimes. So, for instance, one major effort the art department did was to build the carriage. So, because we usually rent picture cars, period cars, and even carriages, we've had on the Crown so many real carriages and horses. You have teams and you have companies that can provide that service. But that specific carriage is iconic, and it's you cannot rent it. I mean, it's on a museum now, so we had to somehow make it. I think it was built, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 10% smaller than the real one. So we could also fit all the gates that were already built and the sets that we already had. I then, that's just a tiny detail, I know. I then insisted that she had a window behind her head inside the carriage, and that was not the case on the real one. The real one is just a blank, just a flat background, so she would be just against like a red velvet or something. It felt to us that although she's by herself, and although that's the message, not even Philip is with her inside the carriage, it would be amazing to be able to see Charles following her, more or less on the same frame. So she would be lonely, but not fully isolated, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I think her expression delivers so much sadness and concern and uncertainty about the future. Then I have to insist again, yes, we're there for that. We're there to find solutions and to make it look beautiful. But if it wasn't for Olivia, we wouldn't be talking about this scene now. Yeah. Would you agree? Would you agree? I think it's the high quality we get from the performances made the show. And I insist, I mean, of course, I'm very proud of what I've done. I'm very proud. It changed my life and changed my career. I really think we deliver something special. I really do. I don't want to be, too modest about it. But I really think that it's the quality of the performances I've seen, in front of me on the sets, and the level of dedication and professionalism made us all much more focused and serious and committed, and perfectionist. We all turned into perfectionists. Even now on season 4, the one we're just finishing now, I remember actually saying this, that you don't get less from anybody. And it's the same crew, Rob. 80% of the crew keeps coming back. So, and you don't see people I know how to do this. Oh, it's getting boring. It's getting boring. I mean, it's really strange how we still find excitement and joy, doing the show. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
I want to talk about your Emmy history. Well, firstly, you've won lots of accolades for your Brazilian work. You've got 2 ASC prizes. You've got an Emmy nomination, and you won in 2018 for Beryl, the episode Beryl. Firstly, take us back to the win, how you felt, and what does it mean to you to win those kinds of accolades?
Well, there's a very important one that I sometimes forget, and I should never. The first feature I shot abroad in Mexico, Sin Nombre, got both me and Cary Fukunaga Sundance Awards. So that was a very interesting and stimulating start. I don't think I try to balance my feelings in terms of how important awards are for my category and for myself personally. I think that's not something we should pursue. I think it just basically is a recognition of your good work, and there's lots of politics involved, etc. And then you learn more and more. I never really thought that I'd be the first season on The Crown. Just so you know, the first Ep 5, Smoke and Mirrors, the coronation episode, was nominated because there's the Cambridge Festival in Poland only allow you to subscribe first episodes or pilots for a specific series. So I could never submit. I can never submit, second season work or whatever. So, but because it was the first one, so Smoke and Mirrors was nominated for every single festival. So the Cambridge, the BAFTAs, the ESCs, the Emmys, the BSC Awards, all of them. And I didn't get any on my first season, and then finally I got the ESC Award for Smoke and Mirrors. That was the last ceremony of that specific season, right? And then I said, well, anyway, I mean, that's amazing, right? So I got all the nominations, and then you learn how much the nominations are cool, because that's when you get real attention, from producers and directors. Your name is out on the media, et cetera. And then you really use that chunk of time between the nomination and the ceremony to enjoy the feeling of being nominated. And I think I've learned that, instead of being super anxious about winning, just enjoy this specific moment where your work has been recognized already, right? And then season 2 was a little different. I then submitted Beryl. It's much less, it's not as grand as Smoke and Mirrors were, but it's much more, it felt to me that that was the episode that people remembered, that really stuck with people in general. Beryl gave me a BAFTA, an Emmy, and an ASC award. So the Emmy was really funny because when I got the nomination for Smoke and Mirrors a year earlier, we went all together. Ben Caron, the director, Martin Childs went and won. Michelle Clapton went and won, and I didn't. And then on the second year, when I got the second nomination, we were in full principal photography. I mean, I almost couldn't go. Technically, I couldn't actually go. So we managed, me and my camera operator. I said, look, I'm going to go. I'm going to spend 48 hours in LA, and then I'll come back. Please, if you can replace me for... Anyway, I went alone, just by myself, flew to LA, got there on 3 p.m. I was at the ceremony at 5 p.m. on the same day. Went back to the hotel feeling like a zombie. I still cannot remember very well what happened on that day because I was by myself all the way through. I sat by myself. I got the award by myself, went backstage by myself. It was really such a weird trip. So, but amazing feeling. And I had to thank Claire Foy, on stage like I usually do, like I'm doing to you now and to your viewers and it's just, I really think they're special. I really do. And that's my goal in life. Instead of like necessarily going up and up in terms of the size of the projects you do and the budget, it is the quality of the script and the cast attached. That's still is my main focus of attention. Who's behind it and who's going to be on the screen, more than the scope of it or the size of it, let's see. Now things are changing. We don't know, what's the situation going to be in 1 year. So I'm sitting and trying to understand. Well, there's The Crown season 5. I think it's going to happen. I think Netflix really wants it to happen. I think we're in good shape for that, because we don't need to start before April 2021. Yeah.
We've run out of time, but I can't let you go without asking you, firstly, what episode are you thinking of submitting this Emmy season? And secondly, is season 4 sounds amazing, and is it as amazing as we anticipate? We literally have 30 seconds, but whatever you can tell us would be great.
Okay. Well, for me, the front runner or the chosen episode is the Aberfan episode. So that's the one I submitted for the BAFTAs and for the Emmys.
Yeah.
I think season 4 is extremely strong. Differently from the other ones, for the first time I shot the first 5 episodes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That hadn't happened before. Diana and Thatcher are going to be introduced on season 4, and they're both amazing. I think at 403, no spoilers, it's very likely the best thing I've done. I'm absolutely over the moon with that 3. But there's nothing else I can tell.
Oh, man. We're so excited for that. And Adriano, good luck this Emmy season. We hope to see you on the red carpet, hopefully. And congratulations on wonderful work over season 3. It was just amazing.
And you think I chose it right? You think Aberfan is a good frontrunner?
Aberfan is brilliant. I would have said Bubbikins, Aberfan, the season finale. There's so much. I don't even know if you did the Bubbikins, but Aberfan's pretty bloody good. The classroom scene, the Emmy, right?
Well, yeah. Just thank you, because I did Bubbikins, I did Aberfan, and I did the finale as well. So thank you very much for your nice words.
Everybody go to Gold Derby, make your predictions, click subscribe. We have lots of contender chats with people just like Adriano.